Hey gamers, this is Liz Davidson from Beyond Solitaire, and I'm back on my podcast with another special guest, Besime Uyanik. How are you doing, Besime?
I'm fine, thanks. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm so happy to have you here. So for
Thank
people
you.
who don't know who you are, how dare they, give us a quick overview.
So since 2015, I'm the CEO for Iron Game Design. It's a board game company located in Sweden, Stockholm, Sweden. So we publish and design our own board games. And I'm actually designing my first game coming out this year. So that's me.
Yes, and that's what we're going to talk about. So you are the CEO of a game company, but you've
Yes.
never designed a game before. What made you take the plunge?
I wanted to, because I'm the CEO and I wanted to know all parts of the company to be a better manager for the company and my employees. So, and the thing I didn't know is how to design a game, but I was surrounded by that all the time. So, and then I talked to our lead game designer, Uyanik, and he said, you should design your own game. And I immediately knew which game to design. So, and that was Sammu-ramat. So that's what I'm doing.
Yes, and Sammu-ramat is exactly who I want to talk to you about today. So what made you choose her as a theme? And give us just a quick overview of who that is for those of us who don't know.
So she's an Assyrian queen. So she was part of the Syrian Empire, and she lived about 800 before Christ. So and she was queen for 5 years, and during that period, she actually stabilized the empire. So she's kind of a really great female figure that has kind of disappeared in history. Most people know her as Semiramis, the myth that the Greek came up with. so I think a lot of people have heard about Semiramis, but they haven't heard about Sammu-ramat, the actual figure behind that. So, and that's what I want to bring out with my game. And I started thinking about her quite early. So I'm myself an Aramean, or part like Syrian Empire is my heritage. So, and my father has always talked about Sammu-ramat. So I grew up with this female character that my father was like admiring so much. She was part of leading the armies out to war. She was like really great. And so she was a hero for me. So when I was doing my own game, I remembered everything my father talked about her. And then I was like, I need to do a game based on my heritage and a female, like someone like me, that I can connect to. So it was quite obvious what I wanted to do. And I love history. So I love diving into this. So that was that was the background. Yeah.
Yeah. So one thing that really interested me about trying to do a game about Sammu-ramat is that it's very hard to find information about her herself. What do we actually know about the real woman? And then let's talk about the Sammu-ramat stuff just so people get some context.
So we don't know a lot about her. There's really difficult to find anything. Just like a lot of other female persons, not characters. Sounds like they are not real, but a lot of other female persons throughout the histories. She's kind of just mentioned, in the passing in the history. So it's really difficult to find something concrete about her, really. And then, as I said, the myth, there's much more things going on with that is based on her, but isn't completely made up. So what we know about her is that she was part of the Syrian Empire, and she took over after her husband died, and she was there for 5 years before her son took over the empire again, or the reign of the empire, and she did stabilize. And the reason we know that she existed is because there is a still, which was also kind of unusual for a female to be mentioned in a still raised in her honor, saying that she did exist, that she was a queen. So she must have done a lot for the empire to get that honor, to get that still. So that's what we know about her. And then I tried to find stuff about her, but it's really, really difficult. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I did some digging too, just to prep for this interview, and it's like, okay, so Diodorus Siculus takes a story from this doctor who says that she was basically this sexy lady who went around and had a bunch of husbands, and it's like, wait, what?
And isn't that funny that it's always what happens to female persons or females in the history, that they become this, I don't know, I have a lot of men, or she was not the real person itself. I think that's kind of sad. And that's a little bit what I want to do as well. I want to lift, so if I do another game, it will be another female character. I want to do about Zenobia, which is also the part of the Assyrian heritage as well. But I want to lift these figures in history and give them another purpose and another meaning, or try to find what they actually did. So yeah, if it makes sense.
So I'm a big Zenobia fan, but I'm actually really happy that Sammu-ramat is going to get her due.
Yes.
So are there any other Assyrian queens that we've ever had on record? Because I can't think of any.
No, not me either. No. This is what I've heard. I heard about Sammu-ramat my whole life, but no.
I actually one of my old bosses from college is like an Assyriologist. So I texted him. I haven't heard back yet, but I guess I'll find out. But I'm thinking no. I really think no. Which makes her really, really special.
Yes,
so when you put her into a game, how are you constructing this game? Like what's at stake in the game? What's going to constitute victory? What are you doing in the game?
Yeah. So it's going to be a co-op game, because that's something I wanted from the beginning. And the players are going to be her advisors. So for now, it's kind of worrying if she's a non-player character, but I still want her to be a strong character in the game. So I want her to be involved. But the players are advisors for her, because the royal court actually had like 150 advisors during this time, which is fantastic, that they actually did this. They have academics that were giving them advice, and that's what I'm thinking that the players will do. They will give advice to Sammu-ramat, but she will be the one that actually takes the advice or doesn't take the advice. So I want her to be strong. So there will be a lot of advice cards that you take, and then there's tokens and things so she is still part of the game. And it would start a couple of years before she actually comes into power, and then during her time, and then hopefully, if the game goes as planned, it goes that you leave the empire to her son. So that's basically what it is right now.
Right. So there's going to be some lead up before before her husband dies.
Yeah.
So maybe like an ingratiation period where you're kind of gaining her trust. And
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. I thought we could just jump into the time where she is there, but I want to, because she was involved in she was an advisor to her husband as well. So it seems what I've been reading so far is that she was involved in her husband's doings as well. So it wasn't that just she showed up, she actually was part of the history before that as well. So.
Right. And if that hadn't been the case, there's no way she would have been as capable as she was while she was the regent.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah.
So is the game going to have combat? Is it going to be an economic game? Is it a mix?
It's a mix. So to have this big empire, there's a lot of things you have to do. So I want it to be, in all games that we have published, that Iron Game Design is based in history, and the mechanics are based in the history as well. And I want my game to be that as well, because I want to show the Assyrian Empire. I just don't want to show Sammu-ramat. I also want to show the Syrian Empire in another light, because it's seen as this very violent and military strong empire. But it was so much stuff going on that is still today part of our societies as well. Just like small stuff, beer is from the Syrian Empire as well. So there was so much. Medicine was also like brought a lot of the medicine writings was from that period as well, and the communication channels, the infrastructure, and it was so much other stuff going on in the empire as well. And I want to lift those things as well. And then it can't be just a combat game. And probably she did give advice about everything else. So it's going to be, you have to have a balance. This is a co-op game. You have to have a balance with the military strength and then both internal, because there was a lot of internal struggles and external struggles. But you also have to keep the happiness of the people, because if they're not happy, the empire will fall, which was what happened in the end, that the empire, because of the people, wasn't happy. So you have to have balance in both the military strength, happiness, wealth as well. What was that? Religion. There was so many different religions in that period. Ashur was the big religion, and the country was called Ashur as well at that time. So everything like this, you have to have balance in it. And the winning conditions is that that you don't, none of these different lines go down to 0, because then you lose. Then the empire isn't happy. And then you have different victory conditions based on different empire cards that you will be picking as well. Did that make sense?
Yeah. So from what I'm understanding, the goal is to have a thriving empire after 5 years to give off to your son when your regency ends. But if you lose the empire, you lose the game.
Exactly. Yes.
So we know that Sammu-ramat had some generals who did oppose her, I think in some major cities, right? Like, didn't Nineveh oppose her at first, from what we know? So how are you going to represent her opposition? Are there actual characters of generals in the game, or is it just sort of like a general push against her on various fronts?
There will be a different push with cards. So it will be different, both event cards and different, as I said, empire cards. So there would be with cards. So there won't be any characters in that sense. And then there will be military with just cubes and tokens and so on. But there won't be any characters. I don't want that kind of combat, not for this game. I don't want that kind of combat in that. Because then I'm just building up on the whole, like, the military, which was strong, and it won't be taken out from the game, because it was a big part of the game, but it won't be any characters.
Right. So basically, from what I'm understanding, the idea is to keep the focus on Sammu-ramat.
Yeah.
So you're trying to remove some of the more like character-based opposition.
Yes.
And the reason for making it co-op is to kind of make sure that she's at the center.
Yes, exactly.
Of everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice. So artistically, you have a lot of really rich tradition to work with. So how are you doing the art for this game? Are you having someone draw images that are based on Assyrian art? Is it something that's modernized? Are you getting images of artifacts? What's the plan here? Because that stuff is gorgeous.
Yeah, yeah, it is. I agree. So I have an illustrator working with me, Madeleine Fjell. She has also done Pax Viking, which was a game she illustrated as well. And she's doing like me now. So we're working quite closely right now. So I'm doing a lot of research for the game mechanics. And she's doing a lot of research with how it looked. And it was like beautiful colors, and it was beautiful buildings and so on. So she's basing, it's going to be more realistic kind of art with it as well. So she's basing it on what we can find from that period as well. So, yeah.
Nice. So modern art, but based aesthetically on ancient art.
Yeah.
So are there any images that you find particularly striking? I always just think of like Lamassus or like the Ishtar Gate or...
Right, Ishtar Gate is so beautiful. That's so nice.
So one thing I do want to maybe have you expand on, though, is that aesthetically, I think it's going to be really nice to see ancient Assyrian-inspired art, because Roman art, even though we know that the statues and sculptures were painted, we have this kind of idea of Roman art as very beige, as very like white marble. So does Assyrian art look like that?
No, it doesn't. They did also have a lot of colors. Like the Ishtar Gate was blue, you know. It was like, yeah, so it was a lot of colors, and it will be a lot of colors in the textiles they are wearing and the buildings. And there was a lot of they did plant a lot of flowers, and they had beautiful gardens, so hopefully that will be also part of the game. And we will have a map, so you know, we'll try to get some of the aesthetics into all this. So the first time me and Madeline talked, and it was really like, we should have colors. It should be a lot of colors. So no beige.
Definitely. So are the advisor characters, are they going to have character art? So I feel like you're really trying to focus on Sammu-ramat, on female power. Will there be male and female advisors?
Yes, there will be. So we're doing both. So both female and male. And they will come from different, because there was a Syrian Empire with so many different cultures. The more I read about it, the more confused I get, kind of, if it makes sense.
Actually, yeah.
With so many different cultures involved. So the advisors, what we're thinking is, it doesn't actually, I haven't read anywhere where the advisors, but in my head, if they had advisors, should be from different parts of the empire as well. So the characters will be from different cultures, and they will have backstories as well. So we want to build on the strong characters as well. So Sammu-ramat will be strong, but also the characters to lift some of the other cultures that were involved in this inside the empire. So we would, for example, have a female from Egypt, because it was for a time a vassal state to Syrian Empire as well. So not during Sammu-ramat's time, but we're thinking she might have been there. Anyway, just to lift the different cultures as well. And yeah, as I said, they will have strong characters, and they will have backstories, and Madeline has already illustrated different characters as well. So, yeah.
Oh, that's nice. Mm-hmm. And just for people who don't have a sense of perspective on this, you know, we think about, the Roman Empire, a lot of us, or like, maybe Persia. Mm-hmm. But how big was the Assyrian Empire? About how far did it go?
It was up all the way almost to the Armenian borders, Armenia, and then Turkey, a lot of parts, and down to Syria. The main was between the two rivers, Euphrates and Tigris. That was like where they mainly were. But they did for some time as well go down all the way, like along the Mediterranean coast down to Egypt as well. I'm sorry. No. So it did go down almost all the way to Egypt, and they were a vassal state, as I said, for the Syrian Empire as well. So it was covering the majority of the Middle East parts.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And how much more development is there going to be for this game? About how much more time until we can get a look at it? At least on Kickstarter or something.
Yeah, the Kickstarter will be in October, so we're already planned it for the October, and we will have hopefully the prototypes done, I hope, by August or September, so we can have people actually looking at it. We have a lot of illustrations already done, as I said, with Madeline, and we have started playtesting it internally, but we will also start external playtesting as well soon. Yeah.
And just the solo gamer in me has to ask. It's cooperative, so I would assume that you can play it solo, but you can, right?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. It will be a solo game as well. And we try to do it with all of our games, I can say that. So we try to have solo games for all of our games, because we do think that's important as well.
All right, so speaking of all of your games, Ion has a really specific kind of flavor as a publisher. So y'all do a lot of historical games, and is that, I haven't looked at your entire catalog, but is that basically the main thing at Ion is historical games?
Yes, we do historical and scientific games, and take the basis from the ideas are based on this historical and scientific baseline. And we do that because all of us like science and history. That's one of the parts what we do it. But we also want to, with board games, have people start talking about this, about science and about history. So, and to hopefully teach some people, not just with our games, but you get an interest for it and a curiosity, and so you start reading more about it. And so we definitely do it on purpose when we select. We do want to have this, and we want to, have people talking about it and learning. By playing a board game, you learn without actually thinking about it, because you're just having fun and you're playing. So you learn something without thinking about it. And then we want to do like beautiful games that are part. That's where we have illustrators in-house, because we do want to do beautiful products that, because we see board games as an art form as well. So yeah, there's a lot of thoughts inside when we publish a game, while we publish the game, basically. So yeah.
So did the historical bent to your games happen just because that's what you all happen to like, or was it a deliberate choice from the very start of Ion Game Design?
It's been a deliberate choice. Uyanik is the founder and the lead game designer, and it's been his interest as well. So it's been a deliberate choice from his side. And when I came in, I love history. So for me, it was so obvious as well that we should continue in this road that we have started. So it was deliberate for us. And I think it's kind of interesting if we just continue why selecting historical games as well, that by playing a game, it can be, now we're talking about Sammu-ramat, and that she's going to be hand over the empire to her son, but then while playing the game, something can happen, and it's not what happens. And it's so interesting to see that a moment in history can change everything later, and that the game is showing that so clearly. It was just different circumstances that made us where we are ended up today. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah. Yes, and the other thing I think is really particularly exciting about Sammu-ramat is that I think about the Ion game releases that I know. So there's PAX Viking, there's PAX Renaissance. Yeah. So we have these kind of European set games, or you have things that are like the Bio series that are very much just about nature, animals. Yeah. Is this Ion's first foray into sort of a non-European historical setting?
Yes, it is. And I think it's great, and we will do more of that. I think we have had so many game ideas previously that we just continued in that direction. And now that we have published some of the games that we had online already, we are like expanding it outside Europe as well. PAX Viking was, it's part of Jon's heritage, so Uyanik's heritage, so that's why he did it, and I'm doing mine as well. But while I was doing this, it opened up my mind also. As I said previously, it's like showing a part of history that doesn't have gotten so much attention, and we want to do that with other things as well now. So we have some things coming up that is that is outside the European perspective. And I think this is important. There is and we want to work with external designers as well that are showing other parts of the world as well. It's really, really important for me as the CEO for the company.
So when Ion Game Design chooses games, are you mostly choosing things that are designed by your in-house designers, or are you out looking for interesting ideas to bring to life from anywhere?
We do get game submissions, of course, as well, and we always go through this to see if there is any interesting ideas. We have some in-house designers as well, so usually we do publish a lot of games. I think this year we're launching about 8 new games. So a lot of them are, of course, our own games, but we also take in external designers. With it, of those games coming up this year, I think about 4 of them are external designers as well. So try to find interesting, because there's so many interesting game ideas that are out there. We don't know all of them, so it's so much fun to work with people with new ideas, and getting these external designers working with us, that gives us new perspectives. I think that's so important, not to get stuck in your own thoughts and your own way of doing stuff. So yeah.
That's my question. Yes. So how deep is the research process for these games? So I know that you are all doing a lot of reading in-house. Are you also consulting, professors or historical experts outside of ION to vet the material that's going into these historical games, since they could be used as educational tools?
Mm-hmm. We haven't done so. We do a lot of research into our games, and we haven't. And we started also peer reviewing all of our games as well, because it is a lot of historical facts in them. So yeah, I have started contacting universities around the world just to help me in the research. As we said in the beginning, Sammu-ramat definitely needs. I definitely need help to bring her to life as well. And we do want our games to have a longer life and have another life than just board gamers. Not just board gamers, but to get students involved in that as well, and to learn, because it is our focus to teach people a part of history or a part of science in a fun way. And that's perfect for the educational section as well. And so we have started to talk with different universities as well, to have them, help us with the surrounding things for the board games as well, to have it educational. Yeah.
We've talked a little about historical games.
Mm-hmm.
ION also produces games that have scientific themes. Are those similarly vetted, or are they more speculative? I've seen some boxes with space on them.
Mm-hmm.
How is the science handled the same way, or is it different? It's got its own process.
Yeah, it's different process. It's based on the science, all of them as well. So things that could actually work or happen. So, for example, Dawn on Titan, which was one of our launches in the beginning of the year. It's about Saturn, and that you can go there. There's enterprises going up there. So there isn't any enterprises going up there now. But there's a lot of moons, and the moons have accurate names. In the game, you learn more about the moons. So we have facts about the moons, and we think about gravity. How would it work? Would it have a space ship there, and so on? So it's based in real science, but then it is another story on top of that. So yeah.
So it's interesting that you say there's another story on top of that, because I wonder if that feeds into the next question I was going to ask you, which is I like to talk about historical games because I feel like history naturally has human conflict over something, because people have just had a story of conflict or push themselves against each other, against nature, since the beginning of time.
Yeah.
So it's not, in my opinion, that hard to find a compelling historical narrative. But how do you make a game about science the right blend of interesting and educational?
I would say Dawn on Titan and Stationfall, which is the latest games that we have. The other ones have been based on, if I can say, boring, and don't misunderstand me, but boring scientific, but in disguised in a fun game mechanic that doesn't need a narrative. So because the mechanics and the advanced gameplay is interesting enough that the boring science is, it still makes it fun. So, so the stories there haven't been so, yeah.
Don't worry, scientists. We don't actually think you're boring.
I don't think we are boring, but and I love science. I love reading stuff, but yeah, but that's we haven't put so much into the narrative in those games. The newer games have more of a narrative on them that is making it more interesting. That's it.
Nice. And then I guess my other question is, so have you found making games about historical and scientific subjects to be a strong business move? Do you ever, I mean, you're the CEO, you're now designing a game. Do you ever feel like you have to make history or science sexier or kind of push certain types of themes or any of that in order to make the business aspect profitable? Or do you find that you can pretty much do what you want and it works?
I'm kind of a different CEO, so of course, we need to do the business side and have enough money to pay our employees and to continue publishing the games. But I mostly want to create games that are fun to play and that teaches you something and that we think is fun to create. So I don't think so much about that this is a business side. I really do want my team to work with stuff they think is fun and that I can stand for. And so that's what I want. And then if we can make science and history more sexy, that's like perfect. That's a bonus that we can do that. But my aim is I love this market. I love working with board games. I think it's so fantastic to be able to create this kind of products. And I want to continue doing it. And I want to do it with teams that I think it's fun. And that's history and science. I think that's fun. And I'm so happy that people want to buy these games. I'm so happy that we can continue doing these games and that people believe in us. And I care about everyone. So for me, it's so difficult as a CEO. Maybe you should distance yourself, but I care about all of our customers. I care about everyone that writes to me. So
that's probably not a bad thing for being a CEO, okay. Though. Board games is a very personal business, I think that I feel this as a reviewer too, right? Like everybody who does work in the board game industry also tends to really love the games, and we all really love each other and the other players, or we try to. So
true.
So I feel like Sammu-ramat is your dream game because why not start with your dream? And Zenobia is a future possibility. Yes. But do you have any thoughts for game design beyond that?
I want to continue with this road that I'm taking because I feel more connected when it's a female character. So I'm not doing it for any other special reason than that I feel more connected to a female character and that I can bring a female character more to life. So I want to continue doing female characters or based around it. Doesn't always have to be a character. Yeah. And then I actually want to do something about the African continent. So that's something coming up.
All right.
Yeah.
And what are you playing right now that you're really enjoying?
I played Memoir 44 that I'm very fan, and then I'm playing a lot of Stationfall right now because that's what we're working on. So it's a lot of Stationfall, but that's also so much fun, and there is so many possibilities in that game. So it feels like it's new every time. So yeah,
I love it. And where can we find you online?
Oh, I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. I'm not so active. So, no, but I'm on Instagram and on Twitter, and I do have Facebook. So yeah, just hit me up. And I love talking to people, and I talk too much. But
if I had a problem with that, I'd have a problem with myself. So. Oh man. And those of you out there, you know me, I can be found anywhere online as Beyond Solitaire. Thank you so much, Besime, for coming on and telling us about your game. I'm so excited to see it.
Thank you.
Everybody listening, drop a comment, ask a question, and most of all, happy gaming.